Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to decode an invisible shadow economy that is literally operating right under our noses. We are talking about a global system where absolutely staggering amounts of money move around the world, leaving virtually zero trace and completely bypassing modern authorities who, frankly, don't see a thing.
To really understand how this works, I want you to imagine a scenario. Imagine you're holding a duffel bag and it is stuffed with $100,000 in cash. But here's the catch. This money is completely dirty. Let's say it's the proceeds from selling drugs. Well, you can't just stroll into your local bank and deposit it, right? The tellers are going to ask questions and you'll be reported to the government immediately. You also can't just box it up and ship it or, pack it in your carry-on for a flight. The risk of getting caught is just way too high. You need to wash this money, to launder it, and somehow get it back to your bosses in another country. It sounds like an impossible trap, doesn't it?
And yet, criminal syndicates solve this exact puzzle every single day to the tune of a jaw-dropping number. Roughly 3 to 5% of the entire world's GDP is made up of the proceeds of crime. That equates to about $4 trillion annually, trillion with a T. We aren't just talking about a few million bucks vanishing from the streets. We're talking about trillions of dollars flowing globally, completely unseen by our traditional financial systems.
So that brings us to Section 1, the dirty money problem. Criminals use a system known as flying money. Now, flying money is a mostly invisible shadow banking system that secretly connects the global world of organized crime. But the absolutely crucial part is that last bit. They do it without physically moving any cash. This system is the hidden thread connecting wildly different, seemingly unrelated crimes. It links illegal gold mines in the Congo to the global cocaine trade, to illegal logging, to poached tusks and shark fins, and even jaguar bone wine. All of this is connected. Yet to outsiders, it's pretty much invisible.
Let's move to Section 2. What exactly is flying money? To see how this seemingly impossible magic trick actually works, we have to go way back to the Tang Dynasty in China. Let's walk through a little historical analogy. Imagine you're a tea merchant. You travel to the booming capital to sell your harvest, and you get paid in this massive, heavy bag of copper coins. Hauling those coins all the way back to your hometown is exhausting, and obviously it leaves you incredibly vulnerable to robbers. So here's what you do. Step 1, you take those heavy coins to a trusted merchant in the capital. Step 2, he takes the coins and hands you a light, easy-to-hide piece of paper. Step 3, you travel home safely, and you present that paper slip to a local merchant who happens to be a trusted partner of the guy in the capital. And finally, step 4, that hometown merchant honors the paper and hands you the exact amount of copper coins locally. Now, those two merchants, they'll settle their own debts with each other later. But for you, the value was transferred without the physical money ever moving an inch. It was magic built purely on a ledger of human trust. And that was the original flying money. Which brings us to Section 3, Anonymity of a Shadow Trade. Let's look at how this exact same mechanism solves high-stakes problems for today's criminal syndicates. Picture two completely unrelated people facing opposing financial nightmares. On one side, we have Mr. Chen in China. He has $2 million of perfectly legitimate money that he desperately wants to use to buy a luxury apartment in Miami for his cousin. But he's trapped. The Chinese government has a strict $50,000 limit on exporting money. On the other side, we have a drug dealer from Mexican cartel operating in Chicago. He has $2 million in completely dirty drug cash sitting on the street, and he needs it cleaned and sent back to his bosses in Mexico ASAP. So what do? Well, they both turn to an underground network of highly connected, trusted Chinese brokers communicating securely over apps like WeChat. This sets up what's called a mirror transaction. Mr. Chen pays his $2 million to a broker in China. That broker messages a trusted contact in the US. At the exact same time, the cartel gives their $2 million in dirty cash to that exact same US broker. Now, here's the absolutely crucial point. Pay attention to this. The US broker takes that $2 million in cartel drug cash and simply hands it over to Mr. Chen's cousin in Chicago, who turns around and uses it to buy the Miami apartment. Look at what just happened. Mr. Chen got his US asset, the cartel's money was essentially washed into the system, but $0 actual crossed any international borders. None. But wait, we have a problem. The ledger is out of balance. The broker in China is holding Mr. Chen's $2 million, and the cartel in Mexico is still sitting there waiting for their $2 million. How do the brokers settle this massive debt to each other and the cartel? Well, they use the legitimate global economy. Let's say the Chinese broker runs a completely legitimate-looking kitchen appliance export business, and the cartel has a front company that sells appliances down in Mexico. The cartel orders a shipment of refrigerators with a real, actual value of $10 million. But the Chinese broker deliberately doctors the trade invoice to only charge $8 million. When the cartel receives those appliances and sells them, that missing $2 million in value has been secretly, illegally transferred right in broad daylight. The debt is settled, and the authorities have absolutely no idea because the entire transaction left no paper trail. And that expands into Section 4, a global web of crime. Zooming out, these exact same accounting tricks are what connect a sprawling, bizarre, and incredibly deadly black market all over the world. Just look at the sheer wild variety of this interconnected shadow economy. You've got Mexican cartel drug cash moving right alongside the smuggling of Totowaba fish bladders. Have you heard of these? They're highly endangered. They sell for tens of thousands of dollars a kilo as a status symbol in China, and they are literally referred to as the cocaine of the sea. This exact same network facilitates the movement of precursor chemicals for fentanyl, human smuggling, illegal timber, illicit gold, and even those massive global crypto scams. It's a vast ecosystem where absurd items, like fish bladders, are fundamentally linked to the deadly fentanyl crisis on our streets. Let's break down a real-world case study to really see how complex this gets. Here's a modern laundering triangle totaling $13 million. The Sinaloa cartel harvests those Totowaba fish bladders and uses a broker to smuggle them to China, where the Chinese mafia sells them. Eventually, a US-based Chinese broker receives a cut of that product to sell to wealthy consumers in America. That leaves that US broker sitting on $3 million of dirty money owed to the cartel. Now, at the exact same time, the cartel gives that same US broker $10 million in street drug cash to clean. So suddenly, this single US broker is sitting on a staggering $13 million of dirty money derived from both illegal wildlife and street drugs that they now owe to the cartel. The broker in Mexico just pays the cartel out of their own pocket to keep him happy, but now the US broker owes their partner in Mexico $13 million. How on earth do they move that much value without setting off government alarms? They use what's called the electronic store illusion. The US broker, who runs an electronic store as a front, places a $14 million invoice order from a company in China, but that company in China, it's actually a mafia front. The actual shipping container that crosses the ocean only contains $1 million worth of cheap, knockoff tablets and cameras. The broker pays the $14 million invoice anyway, effectively sending $13 million in clean, laundered value back to the Chinese mafia. They are completely cheating the global trade system right in plain sight. Section 5. Catching the ghosts. Why is this so hard to stop? We live in a highly advanced modern world, right? We've got AI algorithms, mass electronic surveillance, and digital banking that tracks every single cent we spend. But contrast that with the reality of the shadow network. This entire $4 trillion system is stubbornly low-tech. It is built entirely on old-school human trust, family clan networks, encrypted chats on apps like WeChat, and literal, physical, off-the-books ledgers. AI and massive data scraping alone simply cannot crack a system where the core ledger is nothing more than a personal handshake and trust between two people. And that brings us to a really powerful insight from intelligence expert Andrea Crosta. He actually resigned from his previous work to build what he calls an intelligence agency for Earth. He says, and I quote, "Any investigator will tell you that it's human source information that makes the best cases. AI by itself is not going to make the case. To truly understand this network, you have to risk your life. You have to physically meet these brokers, befriend them, and infiltrate their inner circles. Because when you do that, you uncover terrifying realities that an algorithm would literally never catch. Listen to this crazy detail extracted from one of Andrea's undercover operations. His operatives spent months earning the trust of traffickers in Mexico City. Eventually, that led them to a dinner with a corrupt airport customs officer. During that dinner, they learned that these syndicates are using a special invisible dye to coat massive amounts of cartel cash. Why? To render it completely invisible to airport security scanners. It's wild. But this gripping anecdote proves that risky, in-person human intelligence is the absolute only way to expose the physical, nitty-gritty details of how these operations actually run. Which leaves us with an absolutely critical question to end on for today's explainer.
Experts tell us that right now, law enforcement is often rewarded for quick, statistical wins, like massive border drug seizures, rather than the long, tedious, complex work of infiltrating these financial networks. But if this invisible web of flying money is the exact same engine, funding the fentanyl devastating our local streets and driving the romance and crypto scams that are fleecing our own communities, how can we demand a change in law enforcement incentives? How do we get them to finally focus on stopping the money launderers, what they call the last mile? Because until we stop the money, the crimes are just going to keep flying right under our radar.